Education is called to order. Adequate notice is required by the Open Public Meetings Act, was provided on December 10, 2020 by posting the notice with the respective clerks of the City of Lambertville, Borough of Stockton, and Township of West Amwell, and advertised on December 3, 2020 in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Trenton Times newspaper. Please stand for flag salute. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call. Andrew, roll call.
Roll call.
Yep.
Lauren Brown Strumfeld.
Here.
Martha Dennis.
Present.
Jim Gallagher.
Here.
Tracy Petrucci.
Here.
Diana Purcell.
Here.
Ronnie Tabarina.
Here.
Megan Warner.
Here.
Philomena Hanks.
Here.
Kevin Kowaleski.
Here. All right, so we'll start off with PTO, PTA, LEF update. We'll start off with PTO. If anybody has anything they'd like to say, Jess, please come on up.
To the podium.
Yeah.
Hi, my first one on the moment. So we have a lot of exciting things coming up. We spend most of our summer doing quite a bit of planning. We have Break the Ice coming up. It's where our new students come in for kindergarten and other new students, and that's August 26th at 5:30. We booked Kona Ice to come in, and the kids like it. Thanks for the parents. The sixth grade is doing a back-to-school skate night at the Frenchtown skating rink, and that is Thursday, September 9th, from 5:30 to 8:30. And then our first PTO member meeting is Monday, September 20th at 7:30 in the West Amwell Library. All of our meetings are currently on the calendar, and I think Stephanie with Bowman was going to reach out about maybe getting them on the district calendar.
Yeah, she did reach out to me today. I had said that I wanted to talk to our school and community committee, and then we'll get back. Yep.
Perfect. And her and I are actually going to have coffee on Wednesday to discuss doing some more joint things with LPS and getting our communities together. So it'll be nice.
Great.
We're going to meet with Mr. Miller on Wednesday for our school bond.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. PTA. Anybody from the PTA? Like to say anything? No, don't see anybody. LEF? Nobody.
So I actually have an update from LEF. Janelle couldn't be here this evening, but she did send me an update, and it was really just a save the date reminder for their annual golf day, which will take place on Monday, October 5th. So obviously last year I had the opportunity to participate for the first time. It was a great event, and I know the money that they raise goes right back into all of our student programming that they provide. So mark your calendars for the golf day.
Awesome. All right, now we're moving on to correspondence.
Which we have, anyone can see.
Correspondence are posted.
Yep.
Everybody can read them. All right, moving on to superintendent update.
All right. So a couple things I want to say before I get started. First off, I want to introduce for the first time to the board in a public meeting, Martha Dennis, who joined our board and will be with us for the next several months. So Martha, welcome aboard. And then I also want to introduce another face that you haven't seen. Heidi Garrett is up here. So Heidi's with us as our BA tonight as we transition to Andrew. Heidi's we're sharing some services with Hunterdon County ESC, so thank you, Heidi, for all your help over the last month. And then Andrew's on our agenda this evening to be officially approved as our new BA. I also want to thank our tech staff. So Dave in the back, and then Vince, our technology director, Cifelli. So we had made a commitment to the public to stream our meeting tonight. So it's our first time, so bear with us, patience. We'll get better with each one. But they've been working hard over the last several weeks to make sure that this all happens. I will tell you that the slide deck that I have is actually on the agenda tonight under superintendent's update, but I'll also send it out tomorrow morning as I typically do. And then I just want to remind folks, and hopefully you got my email on Friday, that for our folks at home that do want to participate in public comment, there was a Google form that was sent out. It's actually right on our agenda. So if you go to our agenda from our website and click, you can access the Google form there. When we get to our public comment portions of the evening, after we do public comment in person, then I will go to that Google form and I'll read out the public comments from anyone at home based on whatever they either wanted to share as a comment or perhaps they have a question, and I'll do my best to answer that question. So we try to work as best we possibly can to include everyone. We realize it's great to have people in person. We know folks got spoiled when we were on Zoom because they could watch from home. So we're trying to do everything we can to accommodate everyone's needs. All right, so for my superintendent update, what I first want to start talking about is our referendum update. So just a couple things. Saturday, September 18th and Saturday, October 16th from 9 to 12. The principals of both of our schools will be there, as well as I will be, to help facilitate. So for folks who've heard maybe a lot of things and have not been in those buildings ever, or perhaps have not been in there from a long time, it'd be a great opportunity for you to come out and take a look at some of the challenges that we're experiencing and the reason why this referendum is so important. A couple other things, I'll be releasing in August also dates and locations for presentations that I'll be doing in reference to the referendum throughout the months of September and October. So I'll kind of be on tour at various locations in all of our communities. I'm also going to host a couple Zooms as well for folks that maybe don't want to come out. And again, it's an opportunity for me to share about the referendum and then answer any questions that folks may have. I mentioned we'll have an additional video that will come out in September and then a third one followed in October. And just a reminder, this is really important for folks, that if you have questions about the referendum, and there's a link here, if you click on it and you go to our website, all the information that we've ever talked about is there. The community presentation, the calculators for the tax impact. There's a form here, which is also in my slide deck, where if you or perhaps an organization that you belong to would like to schedule time to meet with me either via Zoom or in person, you can fill out that form and I will accommodate your schedule, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, or weekends, and set up a time to come out and meet with you, provide whatever information you need in reference to the referendum. And the link right here is for that as well, for that form. So again, lots happening. Things are really going to heat up as we get into August. August, September, and October will be really busy months for the referendum. And the biggest thing I'll just say to the community is that if you come across someone who doesn't know anything about the referendum or isn't familiar, try to do the best you can to either educate them about that or at least point them to where they can find information so they're available and they know what's going on with the referendum. And hopefully over the next couple months they'll get tired of hearing from me and seeing videos and all the different things we're going to try to do. But I realize there may be segments of the community that maybe aren't tied into what's going on in the schools. So anything you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. All right, so transitioning and talking about the upcoming school year. So as much as all of us hoped in June that we would kind of put COVID behind us and move back to 100% normal, not necessarily the case, as we still have some challenges that we're facing. So there's two pieces of guidance that have come out, and they came out pretty early, which was good. Last year it was later in the process. So there's a link here for a document called The Road Forward, which came out from the Department of Education. And then there's a link there for the CDC guidance, which has kind of been evolving throughout the summer. So this is really important information that obviously, we're looking to guide us as far as our decision-making goes. And we realize that there could be some changes with this information in the next month or so before school starts. But just a couple things that I want to kind of focus on. First of all, we will return to our normal full daily schedule for all of our students pre-K through 12 to start the new school year. So we have no modified schedules, none of that stuff. We're going back to our normal schedule. So the big $1 million question that's been bounced around and on social media, and even in some of our questions that came up already for folks who submitted to Google Form for public comment, are there going to be masks or are there not going to be masks? So you probably know by now that the Department of Health and the governor has left it up to individual school districts to make a decision on whether it's going to be masks or not masks. I will tell you tonight, spoiler, I'm not giving you a decision on what it's going to be because it's too early to tell. All right, so we have 6 weeks or 5 weeks until the new school year. What I will tell you though is I am going to make that decision based on the data that's available to me in our district based on Hunterdon County and then our 3 specific municipalities. That is how we're going to make the decision. So if our data is really strong and our rates of infection are not increasing, even though they may be increasing in other parts of the state or other parts of our country, then we're going to make a decision more than likely to not have masks or have masks optional. If our data does increase and things continue to move forward and get worse and in our particular areas, then we're probably going to be having masks. So we'll see how that plays out. The state could also change, as could the CDC in the next 5 weeks. So it's too early to tell. As I've told our administrators, keep your mask in your pocket, right? That's probably going to be our philosophy moving forward. And even if we don't have them to start the year, or we do have them to start the year, there's a chance that it may reverse course depending upon what our data says. And these are huge resources to me that I look at. So if you're not familiar, this is the state one that comes out every Thursday afternoon that shows you exactly where we are as a state. And right now we are the Central West region, Mercer County, Hunterdon County, and Somerset. So we are in yellow. Obviously there's some areas in southern New Jersey that are in green, so we're continually watching that. And then the other one that's really important is this one, and this focuses specifically on Hunterdon County. So it allows us to drill down, and there's a chart here that shows municipal history, and you can kind of hover and see like Raritan Township, and if we go all the way to the bottom, our lowest one is Stockton, as you can see right now. And then as we go on this screen, I can see exactly the number of cases that have been confirmed and unfortunately deaths that have been associated with it. So I'm watching these numbers very closely for our 3 municipalities to see whether there's changes, what does that look like, and again, this is the data that I'll be utilizing to make decisions, so it's important. So that is something that obviously you all have access to as well. As far as social distancing, we're going to do the best we possibly can to maintain 3 feet. Where we can, and then reasonable social distancing where we can't. So if you looked at the guidelines and saw everything that came out from the DOE wants all kids back in school. So what they've said is do the best you can to maintain social distancing at 3 feet, but if that means the kids can't come into class because you don't have enough room, then do the best you can with social distancing. The number 1 priority is we want them in school. We will not be doing temperature screenings as kids come in to school every day like we did last year, nor will we be having parents complete the Frontline app that we had last year that they had to do every morning. But we will be providing parents, and I'm going to get into that in a second, guidelines as to exactly if for some reason their child wakes up that day or they're in school that day and we identify a concern with our nurse, what are going to be the next steps as far as the protocols which come exactly from the health department and the Road Forward document. We also plan on maintaining, and I just met with our head of facilities earlier this afternoon, all the same cleaning protocols that we had last year as far as how often, what we're doing during the day, wiping down desks, students, all those pieces, bathrooms, that will all be the same for this upcoming school year, so no changes with that. So for lunches, so at the middle school and the high school, we will be using the high school cafeteria, and we'll also be using a space in this building that at one time was dedicated more for a middle school cafeteria space. We're going to use both of those spaces to spread out our students with social distancing. We will have 2 lunch periods per day for our high school and our middle school students. We're still examining options at the elementary of whether or not, and we'll make a decision as we get later into August, are we going to go back and use the cafeteria spaces, utilize the outside spaces when weather permits, or are we going to have lunch in the classrooms like we did this year? So we're still working through that. We're going to go back to our normal schedule with elementary students changing classes rather than having the specialists So in the past, we've had the Spanish teacher have to come in through Zoom. We've had the music teacher have to come in through Zoom. So we're trying to get back to the educational quality that we can, and there's nothing better than having kids right there in front of you for your classes. So what we're saying is that students will be going to their specials, all right? They will be going to that music class, that Spanish class. They will not be doing Zooms in the classroom for that. We'll go back to our normal field trips for the year. So I know last year, unfortunately, one of the big ones for our 6th graders is Camp Fairview. We had to postpone, and then because things weren't better in the spring, we had to cancel. It is our plan to go back to Camp Fairview in November. We've already locked in our dates, and I'm sure that there'll be some protocols that they'll have in place, more than likely, less students per cabin and things along those lines that will follow for COVID. As part of our welcome back documents, so one of the things I'll kind of warn you in advance, and we're hoping to open this up by about August 2nd or 3rd, is that we want to make sure that we have the most accurate information from parents as far as emails, addresses, all that stuff in our Aspen student information system before school starts. So one of the things that we're going to do is ask you in the beginning of August to start going through and completing that information, the electronic forms that we had last year. And we want you to do that because if not, then we're not going to allow access when it's really important time for schedules and things like that. This is our only chance to get parents, right, to get all that information. In that, there is going to be an optional field, and I stress the word optional, that if parents are comfortable reporting if they had their child vaccinated, and we know right now, obviously that's only 12 or older, you can indicate it in that field. You don't have to, it's your choice. Why is that information helpful? Well, if we do have a case and we're looking at contact tracing, and that information will only be available to the nurse, nobody else, just the nurse. If the nurse has that information, obviously that can help rule out with contact tracing pretty quickly if they know that your child is vaccinated. If not, then obviously they're going to have to go through the process and then eventually maybe figure that out down the road. And that could be challenging if you have an entire class that you're contact tracing for. So just keep that in mind. And then we do plan on keeping the tents that we have on our campuses. We had them all last year for LPS and West Amwell. We're going to be keeping them to be able to utilize for either outdoor learning activities, possibly lunch, whatever that we see fit. So they're not something that we're going to take away. We're going to keep up, at least for the time being now. Now, when we look at criteria from the road forward, again, right from the document from the state. So what happens if a parent wakes up in the morning with their child and they're exhibiting symptoms, right? So we're going by these guidelines, and our nurses will reinforce this. I'm going to be putting this on our website under the COVID-19 section. But if your child is experiencing, at least in the first bullet point, 2 of those symptoms, or one of the symptoms in the second bullet point, you should keep them home. And you should report it to the school nurse. And then the school nurse is going to walk you through next steps of what's going to happen. Now, if your child comes to school, let's say, and all of a sudden in their second class or an hour in, they start to exhibit some of these symptoms, the nurse is going to use the same protocols. And probably will still have an isolation room like we had last year, and then obviously calling a parent and then walking the parent through next steps. So when we look at exclusion criteria for symptoms or a positive test, you can see that if there's ill individuals with COVID-19 symptoms who have not been tested, or individuals who have been tested, they're going to be out for 10 days. All right, so that's the same that we used last year. That starts from the onset of symptoms. Right, so that was something that sometimes was confusing last year. It's not when they get the positive result if they're symptomatic. It's when the actual symptoms start. That's when the clock starts. And then at least 24 hours fever-free without medication. Right, that's important. Now, let's say a child is asymptomatic, but for whatever reason tests positive. Then they're going to be out for 10 days, and that date starts on the date they got tested, because there were no symptoms. Right, so that's important. And then if there's an alternate diagnosis, sometimes strep comes into play. Obviously, when we get into flu season, it's going to be important that in order to come back, we're going to require a negative COVID test. Just because we don't know what it could be. And obviously, your doctor may think one thing, but the only way to truly rule it out is if you have a COVID-19 test in that time frame. Now, keep in mind, depending upon our levels, right now we're in yellow, so it's 10 days. All right, we're following this criteria. Let's hope we're not going to move back to orange, but if we did, then we go up to 14 days as far as exclusions. Hopefully we won't have to worry about that, and hopefully we'll be in the green. And just to remind everyone, per the CDC, close contact means being closer within 6 feet of someone or someone who's suspected to have COVID-19 for 15 or more minutes during a 24-hour time period, right? So within that 24-hour time period, if you're within 6 feet for 5 minutes, and then an hour later for another 5 minutes, and then an hour later for 10 minutes, you've exceeded the 15 minutes within the 24-hour time clock. So obviously you would qualify for a close contact, unless, if you're in a situation where you are actually vaccinated. If a student is quarantined due to either testing positive for COVID or exhibiting symptoms or being in close contact, we will provide remote instruction in some capacity. I will provide more specifics about that when we get to our August meeting. All right? So if your child can't come to school because they test positive, they're having symptoms, but they haven't been tested yet, so obviously they're going to be excluded. Or if they were just a close contact, but they don't have symptoms, but they're still a close contact, and they haven't been vaccinated, you're going to have to be out, and we're going to quickly be able to switch on the fly to provide that remote instruction so that over those next 10 days, obviously that instruction is valuable. Now, what if you're vaccinated? So if you're exposed, close contacts, and you're fully vaccinated and have no COVID-like symptoms, you do not need to quarantine, you will not be excluded from school or required to be tested. You should still monitor over the next 2 weeks just to make sure that there's no symptoms that come along with all of a sudden for whatever reason. Obviously, if you're experiencing symptoms, then you're going to need to get tested and you're also going to need to quarantine. But if there's no symptoms, even if you were within the 6 feet, for more than 15 minutes, but you're vaccinated, and that's the reason why, the nurse having that information is very helpful because she can quickly rule that out. Oh, these 3 are vaccinated. I don't need to worry about doing anything with them. They don't have symptoms. They're good. We're good to go. So that's kind of the way it will play out. Obviously, depending upon what happens, we know there's talk about a vaccination becoming available after, for under 12, maybe late fall, whatever it may be. So levels of vaccination can be changed and we may have more. Folks could go into the portal in Aspen to be able to update that information months in if for whatever reason they don't qualify for the vaccine now. And I also realize that the vaccine is a personal choice. And that's your choice with your family and your kids. So again, if that's not something you're interested in, no one's saying you have to do it. And even if you do it, but you don't want to provide that information, that's up to you. But we are giving you an option to provide it to help with our contact tracing. All right. So that's my update for right now. Obviously, more information will be shared. Our next meeting is August 23rd. We'll live stream again, just like we are this evening. And I'll have more details to share, as we get more information or if anything changes. As I do every day, we watch the news, we hear CDC is going to look at this again, that. We never know how this is all going to play out. So it's really important for us to wait until we have all the information possible and then make a decision based on what our numbers are telling us. Any questions from the board? Okay. So I think we're at public comment. Yes. So before we get to public comment.
All right, before we open up public comment, just a few things to read as we do every meeting, just to remind everybody. We have procedures and requirements that include standards of conduct that need to be followed by members of the public during public comment. If a member of the public becomes disruptive during a remote public meeting, not remote anymore, including during any period, the meeting board should be running with the remote public meeting should be mute or continue muting the disruptive member of the public and warn that continued disruption may result in being prevented from speaking during the remote public meeting or removed from the remote public meeting. A member of the public who continues to act in disruptive manner after receiving an initial warning may be muted, while other members of the public are allowed to proceed with their questions or comments. Disruptive conduct includes sustained inappropriate behaviors such as, but not necessarily limited to, shouting, interruption and use of profanity, or comments seen as abusive, offensive, or defamatory. Obviously, we're in person, so this all applies, everything I just read, to the in-person. Also, members of the public are invited to address the board for any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes. The timer will be displayed on the screen. Please, when you're getting closer to 3 minutes, try to wrap it up. During this portion of the meeting, you are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. You just have to state your name and address. You don't need a full address. People may feel uncomfortable. In response to your comments, the board may respond, which we always usually direct our superintendent to respond. That's the rule. Same thing if anybody sends us email. You may get a response back from the board, just so it's clear, just saying thank you for your email, and the situation or your information will be forwarded to the superintendent, who will then respond on our behalf. At this time, we're going to open up the public comment to the in-person first.
Mr. Kowalski, can I say something before we start the public comment?
Sure.
This is nothing related to public comment, but Andrew, I think the agenda is printed out without page 2. So while we're listening to the public comment period, could you possibly print out page 2 for everybody on the board? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
All right. The public comment for in-person is now open for anyone. And I'll just remind you, we do have the boom mic here, which picks up pretty much everything, but if you could talk, a little bit higher with volume, just so our folks at home can hear you as well.
If anybody would like to speak, please come up to the podium. Take anybody who'd like to say anything. Sure.
I just have a question about Jessica Hunterdon, West Amwell. So normally, like at 5 days of school missed, we start to get that letter with absences and stuff. Does the state, did they give any guidance on how they plan to deal with, like, if Hudson wakes up with a sore throat, we're not going to send him to school, but we also take vacations. It's like, will that factor in at all?
Yeah, I mean, just like we were last year, we're going to be flexible. Obviously, because, if a student has to be quarantined because they're a close contact, it's not their fault. So obviously, when we have an attendance policy, there's a chance that we're probably going to go over that number of days. We'll kind of work through that and be flexible.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Jamie Legg, West Amwell. So I just want to run through a scenario as far as with the contact tracing and in the unlikely event, but if it does happen, one of the kids actually gets sick with COVID. So let's say we're all in the same class, right? We're here at South. Jim gets COVID. What happens with that class? So as far as the social distancing measures that you said, as far as contact tracing, contact tracing within 6 feet, just walk us through what that looks like.
So if we identify a student in a classroom that has tested positive, what's going to happen is the nurse is going to meet with the building principal and the classroom teacher to try to identify exactly where the student was in the classroom and who was exposed to that student, meaning closer than 6 feet. So we're going to look at like a seating chart, this, that, and the other, and then from there, that's how we're going to start our contact tracing. And then what we're going to do is reach out, obviously, to parents who the students are impacted and let them know that they're going to need to quarantine. And it all depends on the time of day. If it's after school, obviously it's for the next day. If we were to find out, let's say in the morning of and the kids first come to school, then we're going to do that process and then be pulling kids down to our isolation room and then having parents come pick them up. And then they'll be out for the extended period of time, let's say it's 10 days, whatever it may be, and then we're going to try to flip the switch depending upon when it happens to get them immediately on the remote instruction. Now, it may not be the same day, let's say if it happened during the day, but by that next morning, we want to have a plan so then they would start doing remote instructions.
So there's no way to do any sort of a COVID test? If let's say that, you're like, I was around this kid for, all day. Like I was in the same class, but I'm good. There's no way you could do a false test and still come back?
The problem with that is typically with COVID, if you look at the guidelines, they recommend that you don't necessarily get a test right after you were exposed because there's an incubation period. So typically you would wait till like day 4 or 5 before you would even get the test. Or you could get a false negative and then in day 5 test positive. That's the challenge with some of the rapid tests that sometimes folks get, where they don't necessarily are not accurate 100% of the time. So the health department and the CDC recommends that you really shouldn't get tested until about day 5 after exposure.
So instead of 10 days, can we do it at day 5?
Well, if you look at the guidelines I actually shared, it talks about, one second. So if we're in the yellow, right, exposed close contact should be excluded from school for 10 days, or 7 days with a negative test collected at days 5 through 7.
So it does include that.
Yes, so you could cut that down, but again, that day 5, so it's not like, okay, I was exposed, let me go get the test tomorrow, call the school, I was negative. You really gotta wait until day 5 to get that test.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, anybody else? No, one, twice. All right. Close down the first public comment. We'll have a second one at the end. Moving now to the.
Yes, my remote folks.
Your remote.
So I will tell you, just look, because of all the 6 that I have right now came in before the meeting, and a good number were around masking. Like, and I think I've already answered that. But our first one, and I'm going to show them in true transparency. So this one is from Anisha, from Lambertville, and basically will the mask policy be for the elementary school. So I've already talked about how obviously I'm not making a decision on that yet, and I'll make a decision as we get closer. This Janelle had sent me just the update for LEF through the form, which I already read. This is from Dave Beaumont, from West Amwell, and his question was, will and can the superintendent provide an update on the proposed referendum? I did not see the topic on the posted agenda. So it was part of my superintendent update, which is also on the agenda. Julie Lyons, who's outside the district but has a student. Will the kids be required to wear a mask in the upcoming year? So we already answered that. And this is Manisha again. Oh, it's the same thing. Okay. Put it in twice. And then the last one is from Paul Fries, Lambertville. Last week, the American Academy of Pediatrics urged all schools to require masks for all students and teachers, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated. This is in light of the mounting evidence that the Delta variant is infecting and spreading through both the vaccinated and unvaccinated populations. We are confronting a more infectious variant at a higher daily caseload in New Jersey than what we had at this time last year. At a minimum, shouldn't masks be required for all? Also, if the governor holds firm and doesn't allow virtual learning this year, what options would parents have if they decide it's unsafe to send their kids to school? So I'll answer both parts. So the first part I think I've answered already, and we're going to kind of in a wait and see mode. The second part is, honestly, the only option that you would have right now, because we can't provide a remote option, unless like a student had to be quarantined or whatever, is to withdraw the child and homeschool. It's really your only option right now that the state of New Jersey has given us the authority to do. So, all right. So that is the end of the first round of public comment.
All right.
We'll see if we get anything else.
Perfect. We'll move into our agenda. We have to approve the minutes, correct? I need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes in executive session from the June 28th meeting. I'll second.
Ron, second. Okay.
All right.
All right. Roll call vote. Lauren Brun-Strumfeld,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Jim Gallagher,
Yes.
Tracy Petruoli,
Yes.
Diana Purcell,
Yes.
Ronnie Tomarina,
Yes.
Megan Warner,
Yes.
Philomena Hennis,
Yes.
Kevin Kowalski.
Yes. Buildings, grounds, transportation, finance, and safety committee. Diane?
Thank you. So we did meet on the 15th, July 15th, a couple weeks ago. So a couple of things just to highlight that may not be things to approve. We talked a little bit about the ESY and summer enrichment, and just big kudos to all the logistics that went on with that, especially busing. There's a lot of different schedules to accommodate. Tony and Andrew are having a meeting with Machio's coming up. I believe it's the second week of August,
19th,
just to
yep.
talk about different meal options for the different schools. Something we are approving on the agenda, finally, we got the okay to officially transfer the Stockton building over to Stockton. So that's something we will be approving. Other than that, all the other items are on excuse me, the agenda for approval. So I'd like to move items A through 10.
Second?
And just real quick before we do a roll call, I did want to acknowledge Jeff Hewitt. He did a ton of work for the summer program, and then Cheryl Blankman as well for our ESY program. It was challenging with transportation, and I know the both of them have been there like every day, helping with the kids and everything else. So thank you so much for all that work.
Thank you. We're now up for discussion. Anybody have any questions, comments on the building the grounds? All right.
Roll call vote. Lauren Von Stromfeld,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Tim Gallagher,
Yes.
Trace Patchouli,
Yes.
Diana Purcell,
Yes.
Ronnie Tomarino,
Yes.
Megan Warner,
Yes.
Philomena Hanks,
Yes.
Kevin Kowalski.
Yes. Okay, Personnel Committee, we did meet. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Souza to highlight some.
Yeah, so, a couple, big things. Obviously, staffing is a big thing right now as we approach the new school year. So you'll notice on the agenda, we do have recommendations for some new teachers who will be joining us, several new teachers. So we're excited. We're very, very close to being fully staffed. We have a couple final pieces that we're working on right now, but we'll be all set for the start of the new school year. Something else I just wanted to share, which I think is really important that we've talked about in personnel. Next year, we actually will be for the first time introducing an employee assistance program to all of our staff employees in the district. So why is this important? Well, as we focus on social emotional learning and mindfulness and mental health, it's important as much as we're supporting our kids that we're supporting our staff as well. So this is a program where we'll provide staff resources to deal with all the many challenges that they have during normal times, let alone during pandemic times. So I'm appreciative of the board of supporting that. Obviously, our staff deserves it, and we're excited to kind of get that off the ground in the next month or so for our staff.
All right. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right. Open for discussion? Comments, questions, concerns? All right, Andrew.
Roll call vote. Lauren Von Stromfeld,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Tim Gallagher,
Yes.
Trace Patchouli,
Yes.
Diana Purcell,
Yes.
Ronnie Tomarino,
Yes.
Megan Warner,
Yes.
Philomena Hanks,
Yes.
Kevin Kowalski.
Yes. All right. Moving on. Curriculum.
Congratulations, Andrew.
Yes,
Congratulations, Andrew. Yeah.
You're official now.
You're official. Very nice. Curriculum and technology. Lauren?
Okay, so, hi everybody. So I have you on the video and listening to you on the phone. We're trying to do both. So please shout if you cannot hear me or understand me. I'm gonna keep going if I don't hear that and assume everything is fine. Okay. So, all right. So up for approval tonight, we have curricula for several new courses. So you'll see the Modern U.S. History 60s to the Present, U.S. History 2, and Introduction to Podcasting. And you'll notice also as to board members, as you look at them, that we've made some revisions to incorporate multiple perspectives. And we also, in the podcasting, you'll see standards specific to each unit. So the layout's a bit different and helps to tie the standards to overall in each course. So we also have up for approval the ESL program review. The administration is recommending we hire Professor Solange Lopez-Murphy, who is currently on the faculty at TCNJ, knows our district, and will audit our program, which has grown a lot in enrollment and staffing over the last few years. Again, this is for the ESL program review. Dr. Solange Lopez-Murphy has also worked previously with students and teachers in our district, so we really think that she submitted the best proposal and also has these qualifications to bring as well to her work with us. We are also approving Shirley Pasalvi for SEL, social emotional learning training with new teachers, and that will be a half-day session. and additional staff members on board for pre-K orientation additions. We're also approving formally evaluation tools. The Charlotte Danielson framework for teaching is just a continuation of what we currently use to start the new academic year. Our administrator evaluation tool is a new tool, and that's the New Jersey Achieved Administrator Evaluation for Professional Learning Observation Instrument. And if you'd like to know more about that, then Jeff Hewitt is your person. We did discuss that in the committee, and the way that tool will be used, and we're glad to have that in addition to support the professional growth of our administrators. So I'm just, I apologize, toggling a little bit back and forth between multiple windows here to make sure I have not overlooked any other items. I did see we also have another curriculum for approval as well, 2 more science curricula that are coming forward as well, environmental science honors and the physics CP this evening. We finally will be approving the 2021 to 2022 district mentoring plan. And one thing I'll just highlight about that for the board and the public tonight is that the district took into consideration end-of-year reflections with mentors and mentees from the previous year and incorporated that. And so one thing that was really exciting is that the mentors and mentees wanted to meet more throughout the year. And so that was something that's also been incorporated, and the document also has more focus on teaching technology and using technological tools in the classroom and for teacher evaluations, as well as includes the previous year's district goals, so new staff members can help get oriented to last year's goals as they move forward and join the district as new employees. So those are all those items. I just wanted to, I know that didn't send out an extra update that came to us. I think that approval, though, is coming from in budget, but I'll just mention that we had discussed in the committee approving the updates that Vince recommended, which will help replace equipment that is no longer supported and will help also expand the networking capabilities in a direction that will be beneficial to teachers, students, and staff. So that, I think with that, if there are any questions with that, I move to items A through E for approval.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we're open for discussion now. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, Andrew?
Roll call vote. Lauren Brunstrom-Schultz,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Jim Gallagher,
Yes.
Tracy Petrucci,
Yes.
Diana Purcell,
Yes.
Ronnie Todd Marino,
Yes.
Megan Warner,
Yes.
Philomena Hanks,
Yes.
Kevin Bobolewski.
Yes. All right, policy committee.
Policy committee met this evening prior to this meeting. I'm going to make a motion to approve items A and B. And once that motion is seconded, I'm going to talk about it a little bit.
Second?
Thank you. All right.
So we have, on item B, we have 4 policies which were discussed last month, and these will be on the second reading. They are for the Bridge Year Pilot Program regulation that goes along with that policy, and a new policy and regulation related to evaluation of teachers. For this evening, first reading, we have the policy on the evaluation of administrators other than principals. We have an evaluation of principals, vice principals, and assistant principals policy and regulation. We have a new policy on civility, and we have a revised policy on, and I'm going to call this actually safety and security, because that is really what we're talking about. It's a policy related to safety of the kids. That policy we have expanded upon. That was probably spent most of the discussion on this evening, and so that is related to the Class 3 officer duties and laying those out in a regulation that accompanies the policy and specifying exactly what the role of that officer or those officers will be in our 3 schools. we had made many changes this evening as we discussed. We had a big discussion. We had a lot of changes to the policy that's posted right now on the website. So for the board, on Thursday, Mr. Suzo is going to bring out his report, and he will bring out some revised copies of those policies. I encourage you to look at them. That's the purpose between the first reading and the second reading is this is the opportunity for everyone to look at those policies, ask your questions, weigh in. We have 3 weeks to do that. You don't have to wait until the last minute. We will be meeting next month prior to the board meeting to discuss the changes and bringing forward a final policy for the second reading so that it can be adopted before the start of the school year. With that said, are there any questions or discussion? If not, then can we move to a roll call vote, please?
So Jim, at the last meeting,
we have a
sorry,
question.
at
No,
the
it's
last
okay.
meeting, we had tabled an item related to the contract. Does this influence that?
Yes,
Okay.
this is it, yeah.
So once we approve this, then we'll
Yes.
go back to that. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, Andrew, let's roll call.
Roll call vote. Lauren Von Stromfeld,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Jim Gallagher,
Yes.
Tracy Petruли,
Yes.
Diana Purcell,
Yes.
Ryan Todd Marino,
Yes.
Megan Warren,
Yes.
Philomena Hicks,
Yes.
Kevin Kowalewski.
Yes. All right, School Community Relations Committee, Philomena?
Nothing to move, but just an update. We were able to have our first in-person meeting, which was great, for a while. Welcome, Martha, to our committee. I'm sorry I spelled your last name wrong. 2 N's, not 1. So we talked about the Board of Education meeting format. As you can see, we're in person, and there's live streaming through our YouTube channel. Members of the public at home are watching the meeting, and they're able to complete that form that Tony brought up. Tony's also striving to raise the professionalism of the appearance of the meetings. We're finally getting more mics, more technology, so we're really excited with the direction that's moving in. A referendum update really mirrors what Tony shared with the public. We're looking forward to seeing those 2 videos, and also he shared information about Project Democracy, which would engage students in voting at the polls as well in the fall. Website continues to be improved. A logo redesign is underway. There's more updates going on the website, potentially with the district calendar, adding more with the kindergarten welcome information. So they're continuing to improve the website. Board Docs is our new format that we'll be transitioning to. It's a new platform that allows more ease and access, centralized documents, search capability, and an easy click option for live streaming. And all old Board documents will likely be archived in PDF format on the website. And finally, as Diana mentioned before, Tony's going to be meeting with Machios to discuss healthy food options. If you remember, we did have some discussion about this before the pandemic started, looking at healthy food options in the elementary schools, and there was a survey that went out. Also, Ronnie asked about looking into speeding up the checkout in the lunchroom so that children have more time to eat at the middle school and high school. Okay, thank you. Martha, did you want to add something that I missed? I know you had emailed us, and I'm sorry it was too late to include it.
You've covered it.
All good? Okay, sure.
All set?
Yep, all set.
All right. Good. Moving into the second part of our public comment, we'll now open the second part. And we'll start with, we have nothing else, right, for that one, right?
I'll check.
We'll open it up to the public here for second public participation. Please come up to the podium if anybody would like to say anything.
Hi everybody, Gina Pichetti. I live in Lambertville. Just as an aside, I was at home listening on YouTube for the first part of the meeting. Sorry, I had to come a little bit late, and it was a little bit difficult to hear some of the public comments. And you probably know, but you can't see the screen when you're watching, like the viewing screen that you guys have behind you when you're watching online. So just, some feedback from someone who is trying to participate in that way. I think it's great that you guys are doing that, but just, some things that I noticed when I was listening. So I just wanted to give you my opinion on something and then ask a question. I advocate, and I hope that, absent a direct order from the governor in the form of another public health emergency declaration, that the district is able to embark on this upcoming school year without a requirement that the kids wear masks in school. I think having it as an optional requirement, opportunity would be the best way to go forward. I say that looking at the rate of transmission amongst children, as well as the number of children nationwide who have actually, there's about 335 kids nationwide who died with COVID listed in their death certificate. And the CDC hasn't even come forth with evidence that that was the reason why they died. All of those kids had severe underlying health conditions, like leukemia, and it's a tragedy, but it's a very small number. And so, in my opinion, the harm that's done to kids by having to wear masks, especially now that the day is going to be a normal length, it's a very long time, especially for the young kids, to wear a mask. So I hope that's how the district is able to go forward. In the event that that's not the case, my question is how the district is going to implement the outdoor learning opportunities for the kids. I've got to say that while I know the opportunity was there this past year, I don't think it was taken advantage of to the degree that it should have been. And so I really hope that in the event that the kids are required to wear masks, that that's taken advantage of to a much larger degree by all of the schools. So, and I'm not just talking about recess, but that's a huge thing. I'm assuming that will be part of the full day, but I'm talking about actually going outside and doing classwork, maybe in some different innovative ways. Having gym outside on a regular basis, those eating outside, those kinds of things. And just one other thing while I'm on the subject of eating, my son goes to LPS, and they got free breakfast this year.
We have to wrap
this
it up.
Past year.
3 minutes. We have to wrap it up 3 minutes. So.
Oh, am I done?
Yeah, that's
oh,
okay.
Sorry.
You can wrap it. You
I
can
can
finish
wrap
the
up.
thought.
Just
Finish
really quick wrap
your
up.
thought real quick.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I saw numbers up there, but I didn't know they applied.
Yeah.
So, they eat 3 times a day. And the options that were given, I know it was a weird year. It was like bagel bags and donuts, but they were eating at their desks without masks on 3 times a day. So I just wanted to point that out as kind of something that the district had been doing. Kids were in the class without masks on. So anyway, thank you very much for giving me that extra time.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. No? All right, we'll close the second public participation. And, right, nothing else? We need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, so thank you, everyone. Thanks for the feedback, too. So that's something we're working through. We do have some newer equipment that's coming in, too. And we'll keep getting better with every meeting.
We do need some ayes to vote on that motion,
Yes,
right?
we do.
All in
Yes.
favor? Aye.
Well, Andrew.
Aye.
I didn't think anyone would be opposed.